You know, sometimes you think you've got everything figured out, especially when it comes to family. You put in the work, you give your time, your knowledge, your sweat, all for the people you love. You expect a certain level of respect, or at least a passing acknowledgement. But life has a funny way of teaching you lessons, especially when you least expect them. This story is about one of those lessons, a hard one for my son, and one that changed my life too. But before we get to that, do us one quick favor: subscribe, hit the like button while you're at it, and comment where you're listening from so we can see how far these stories are reaching. My name is John, and this is the story of how I taught my son that underestimating people, especially your own dad, can cost you everything. For years, I'd been working as a simple handyman for my son's tech startup. It wasn't a glamorous job. I fixed the leaky faucets in the kitchenette, patched up drywall that employees had accidentally dinged with their rolling chairs, and painted the new office spaces when they expanded. I was the guy who made sure the plumbing worked, the walls looked clean, and the electricity didn't short out. While I was doing that, my son, let's call him Alex, was up in his fancy office, taking all the credit for innovation. He was wearing sleek suits, giving presentations, and talking about disrupting the market. I remember the day Alex first came to me with the idea for his startup. He was fresh out of college, full of fire and big dreams. He had this pitch about a new kind of data processing, something that could make complex calculations much faster. I listened to him, nodding along. He was excited, and as a father, I felt proud of his drive. He showed me some of his early code, diagrams on whiteboards, all the technical stuff. I understood it more than he thought. I had a background, you see, a past life that wasn't just about fixing things around the house. But I kept that to myself. I just wanted to see my son succeed. He asked me if I could help him set up his first small office. It was a rented space, a bit rundown. I told him, "Sure, son, anything you need." I helped him build the desks from scratch, wire the internet lines, even installed a basic security system. I didn't ask for money. I just wanted to help him get off the ground. He thanked me then, a genuine thank you, and for a while, things were good. He was appreciative. He'd even introduced me to his first few employees as his dad who's helping out. As the company grew, so did Alex's ego. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, his appreciation faded. The small office turned into a bigger one, then a whole floor in a decent building. My handyman tasks increased. I was there every morning, usually before anyone else, checking the boiler, making sure the lights were all on, sometimes even sweeping the main reception area if the cleaning crew missed a spot. I had a uniform, a simple blue work shirt with the company logo, and a pair of sturdy work pants. It was practical. It was what I wore to do my job. Whenever Alex had investors or important clients visiting, his behavior toward me would change. It wasn't a sudden cold shoulder, more like a gradual distancing. If I was in the hallway, carrying a bucket or a toolbox, he'd avert his eyes. If I happened to be in the reception area when they walked in, he'd quickly guide them away, talking loudly about the cutting-edge technology in the back rooms. He never introduced me to them. It was as if I became invisible, or worse, an embarrassment. I remember one specific morning. I was fixing a wobbly leg on a conference table in the main meeting room. Alex walked in with 3 serious-looking men in expensive suits. I smiled, ready to nod a greeting. Alex glanced at me, then immediately turned his back, launching into a presentation about their quarterly growth. He spoke over the sound of my wrench turning. It was clear I was supposed to just disappear. I finished my task as quickly as I could, packed my tools, and walked out, feeling a familiar sting. He didn't even acknowledge that I was there. He just kept talking about projections and market share. Another time, the air conditioning unit in the server room started making a loud rattling noise. It was a critical issue, could have led to overheating and system failure. I stayed late, almost until midnight, taking the unit apart, cleaning the coils, and replacing a worn-out fan belt. I knew a lot about machinery, about how things worked, not just at a surface level. The next morning, Alex was giving a tour to a potential partner. He pointed to the server room, which was now running smoothly and quietly. He said, "Our team worked tirelessly last night to prevent a potential system-critical failure. Their dedication is what drives our innovation." He looked straight at the partner, never once glancing at me, who was still wearing the same oil-stained shirt from the night before, just grabbing a cup of coffee from the break room. It was like I was just a ghost in the background. My own son was taking credit for my late-night effort without a second thought. I'd often think about calling him out, about asking for some recognition. But then I'd see him, so passionate about his work, so convinced he was building something amazing. And a part of me, the father part, wanted him to have that success. So I swallowed my pride. I told myself it didn't matter who got the credit, as long as the job got done and Alex was happy. I was his dad, after all. What was a little ego-bruising when it came to my son's dream? His talks about innovation always struck me funny. He'd use big words, complex terms, all to describe the core process that his software used. He'd explain how it streamlined data, made connections no one else could, all in real time. He'd wave his hands, walk back and forth. Everyone would be impressed. Investors would nod, their eyes glinting with dollar signs. What they didn't know, what Alex himself had conveniently forgotten, was the true origin of that innovation. 20 years ago, before Alex was even a teenager, I was deeply involved in developing advanced algorithms. I had worked in a specialized research division for a major tech firm. My focus then was on pattern recognition and predictive analytics, long before those terms became buzzwords. I had developed a unique algorithm, a method for processing and organizing vast amounts of information in a highly efficient and self-optimizing way. It was groundbreaking for its time. I had filed a patent for it. Patent number 7,301,452. I remembered that number like it was my own social security number. It was my brainchild, my most significant professional achievement. I left that firm years ago, partly because I wanted to spend more time with my family, and partly because I felt disillusioned with the corporate world. The patent was just sitting there, gathering dust in intellectual property databases. I never really capitalized on it. Life moved on. I took on simpler jobs, became a consultant, then semi-retired, doing odd jobs for friends and family. When Alex started his company, he came across some of my old research papers and notes during a clear-out of my garage. He was fascinated. He asked me about them. I explained the basic concepts to him, simplified them so he could understand. And I, out of love, out of a profound desire to see him succeed, let him use the core ideas, the underlying architecture of my patented algorithm. I never charged him. I just wanted to give him a leg up. I thought he understood. I thought he knew where the real genius came from. I thought he would remember. But Alex didn't remember, or perhaps he chose not to. He just built on it, added his own layers of code, his own user interface. He genuinely believed it was all his work, his innovation. He became increasingly dismissive of me. The little snubs grew into open disrespect. One morning, about 6 months before the big launch, I was in the break room, cleaning up a spilled coffee. Alex walked in, saw me with a mop and bucket. He was on the phone, talking loudly to someone about a deadline. He hung up and just looked at me. "Dad," he said, his voice flat, "can you try to finish up before 9 a.m.? Investors are coming in later, and well, it just looks better if the general staff isn't so visible." He didn't even say handyman or maintenance. Just general staff. Like I was a nameless, faceless cog. I just nodded, cleaned faster, and disappeared. My blood ran a little colder that day. The weeks leading up to the major product launch were a blur of activity. The office was buzzing. Everyone was stressed, working long hours. Alex was almost frantic, pushing everyone, making sure every detail was perfect. I was busy too. I had to make sure the presentation screens were all calibrated, that the lighting in the main hall was just right, that the stage was secure. I was meticulous. I prided myself on my work, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. The day of the launch arrived. It was a huge event. There were media outlets, major industry figures, all the seed investors, and potential new partners. Alex was beaming, electric with anticipation. He wore a custom-made suit, his hair perfectly styled. He looked every bit the successful tech CEO he desperately wanted to be. I, on the other hand, was in my standard blue uniform shirt, a fresh one, but still a uniform. I had just finished checking the sound system in the main auditorium. I was walking back to the small storage closet where I kept my cleaning supplies, just trying to stay out of the way. As I passed the main corridor, Alex spotted me. He was surrounded by a cluster of important-looking people, laughing and shaking hands. His smile froze when he saw me. His eyes narrowed. He excused himself from the group, his face a mask of annoyance. He strode over to me, his jaw tight. "Dad," he hissed, grabbing my arm, his grip surprisingly strong for someone who mostly typed on a keyboard. He pulled me towards a utility closet next to the main stage entrance. "What are you doing here? I thought I told you to stay in the back today." I tried to explain. "I just checked the sound, Alex. Everything is ready." I was heading to the back now. He didn't listen. His eyes darted around, checking if anyone had noticed us. "Your uniform, Dad," he whispered, louder now, his voice filled with barely contained rage. "It's an aesthetic. It doesn't fit the brand. This is a launch event, not a construction site." He was practically shaking me. Then, he shoved me, hard, into the cramped utility closet. The door scraped against the floor, hitting my shoulder. I stumbled inside, landing among mops, buckets, and cleaning solutions. The smell of ammonia filled the air. My head hit the metal shelf on the back wall. It hurt. He didn't even look to see if I was okay. He just leaned in, his face inches from mine, his eyes blazing with anger and something else, contempt. "I'm tired of pretending you're not a pathetic loser who never achieved anything," he screamed, his voice low but piercing, full of venom. "This is my day. My success. And you're here, looking like a janitor. Go back to whatever hole you crawled out of." The door slammed shut, plunging me into darkness. The words hit me harder than the closet door. Pathetic loser who never achieved anything. That was it. That was the line. All the years of swallowing my pride, all the times I let him take credit, all the quiet work I did out of love, it all vanished in a puff of smoke. My son, my own flesh and blood, thought I was nothing. He had no idea. He truly had no idea. I sat there in the dark, my shoulder throbbing, the smell of cleaning chemicals burning my nostrils. The muffled cheers and music from the launch event filtered into the closet. For a moment, I just felt a profound sadness. For myself, for him, for what our relationship had become. Then, something shifted inside me. The sadness turned cold, hard. It was like a switch flipped. The old John, the one who spent years in research and development, the one who patented complex algorithms, woke up. I reached for my phone in my pocket. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clearer than it had been in years. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I pulled up my contacts. I found the number for Attorney Miller, an intellectual property lawyer I had worked with a long, long time ago. He was retired now, mostly, but I knew he was still sharp. I dialed. It rang twice. "Miller here. a gruff voice answered. Richard, it's John, I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the rage bubbling inside me. I need your help. Immediately. John? Good heavens, it's been ages. What can I do for you? Richard sounded surprised. I need you to issue a cease and desist order, I explained, carefully choosing my words. Against my son's company. For patent infringement. Patent number 7,301,452. There was a silence on the other end. John, Richard said slowly, that's your patent. The self-optimizing data processing algorithm. You mean he's using it? He built his entire product, his entire company on it, I stated flatly. And he's launching it today without my consent. Without any licensing agreement. He never even formally acknowledged it was mine. Good heavens, Richard repeated. And he doesn't have a license? No. I let him use it freely out of love. I assumed foolishly that he knew what he was doing and would eventually do the right thing. He didn't. Okay, John. This is serious. I can file an emergency injunction request. We'll need to move fast. Do you have a copy of the patent filing number handy? I rattled off the patent number. I knew it by heart. Richard began typing. My heart was pounding, but it wasn't from fear. It was from a deep sense of purpose. This wasn't about money, not really. It was about respect. It was about reclaiming what was mine. It was about proving that the pathetic loser had a brain, and that brain had been at work long before my son even dreamed of a startup. I stayed in that closet, listening to the muffled sounds of the launch. I could hear music, then Alex's voice, amplified, booming through the hall. He was giving his keynote speech. He was talking about the future, about vision, about his groundbreaking innovation. Every word was a knife twist. I just sat there, phone clutched in my hand, waiting. Richard kept me updated via text. He had filed the papers. The court was reviewing it. The clock was ticking. Then the music stopped. Alex's voice cut off mid-sentence. There was a sudden hush, then murmurs, followed by a confused buzz. I strained my ears. I heard panicked whispers from outside the closet. What's going on? They're halting the launch. Court order? A few minutes later, I heard frantic footsteps outside the closet, followed by a desperate voice. Dad? Are you in there? Dad! It was Alex. His voice was hoarse, filled with panic, not anger. The closet door burst open, not shoved this time, but pulled open with a frantic urgency. The sudden light blinded me for a second. Alex stood there, his expensive suit disheveled, his eyes wide and red, his face pale as ash. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. His carefully styled hair was messed up. He was breathing heavily, almost hyperventilating. He sank to his knees, right there on the dusty floor of the utility closet, amidst the mops and buckets. He put his head in his hands, then looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. Dad, he choked out, his voice broken. The launch, it stopped. A court injunction. Patent infringement. They said it's your patent. He didn't even finish the sentence. He just started crying, loud, desperate sobs. My reputation, it's ruined. Everything is gone. He was crying about his ruined reputation, about his lost dream. Not about what he had done to me. Not about the years of dismissal. Not about the cruel words he just screamed. I slowly stood up. My shoulder still ached, but the pain was distant. I looked down at him, my son, crumpled on the floor like a broken toy. The man who had called me a pathetic loser. The man who had taken my life's work and claimed it as his own. I took a deep breath. My voice was calm, clear, and steady. Alex, I said. He looked up at me, his eyes full of fear and desperation. The pathetic loser just reclaimed his brain. He stared at me, his mouth agape. He still didn't seem to understand the gravity of his actions, only the consequences. He just saw the immediate disaster. The realization slowly dawned on him, the full weight of what I had said, of what I had done. The pathetic loser was not pathetic at all. The loser who never achieved anything had achieved something truly remarkable, something he had built his entire empire on. The startup collapsed within a month. Without the core algorithm, their innovation was just an empty shell. The investors pulled out. The partners canceled their deals. The employees, confused and disheartened, started looking for other jobs. Alex's dream, built on a foundation of unacknowledged genius, crumbled. It wasn't a quick, dramatic implosion, but a slow, painful process. I watched from a distance, feeling a mix of regret and vindication. It was a hard lesson, but one he needed to learn. He's now living in his mother's basement. My ex-wife, his mother, calls me sometimes. She's heartbroken, of course. She doesn't understand the full depth of what happened, only that Alex lost everything. I don't tell her the details. Some things are just between a father and his son, even when it all falls apart. I know he's struggling to find work. The industry knows what happened. His reputation, as he feared, is in tatters. As for me, I sold the patent to his biggest competitor. They were very interested in the technology, especially now that it was proven and had caused such a stir. The deal went through smoothly. It wasn't a sudden, implausible multi-million-dollar haul, but a solid 7-figure sum. It was a fair market value for a foundational technology, especially one that had already demonstrated its potential in a live company, even if that company failed. It gave me a comfortable financial independence I hadn't pursued in years. I bought a small house by the lake, something I'd always wanted. I spend my days fishing, reading, and occasionally tinkering with new ideas, just for myself. The money was good, but the real value wasn't just in the numbers. It was in the quiet satisfaction of knowing I had stood up for myself. It was in reclaiming my own worth, my own legacy, after years of letting it be diminished. It was a reminder that true innovation, true achievement, isn't always loud or in the spotlight. Sometimes it's the quiet work, the foundational thought, that truly holds everything together. And sometimes those who do that quiet work are the ones who are most underestimated. Don't ever forget that. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's perception, especially not when that perception is colored by their own ambition and ego. Recognize your own value, because in the end, you're the only one who truly knows it. If this story resonated with you, join our channel by liking and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one.